Open source software is free to use, but the impacts it has on your organization are not. And that's what I want to talk about here today. There's a financial reason that software supply chain governance should be moving up your priority list. It doesn't typically show up on balance sheets, but it's a slow drip that has a huge impact on your organization, your ability to achieve your strategic initiatives, and ultimately to stay ahead of your competition. So to help illustrate that, I built the cost of inaction or the status quo calculator that you see here. And today we are going to model the cost of reactive software supply chain governance for a fictional company. Let's call them Acme Financial Group. Acme Financial is based in the United States in the financial services industry with an annual revenue of about $5 billion. Now, Acme Financial has 250 developers, 15 security engineers, and undergoes 2 audit or compliance cycles per year, which is not unheard of for large regional financial services organizations in the U.S. Acme pays their developers a fully loaded salary, including benefits and onboarding of $185,000 annually, and a fully loaded salary for security engineers of $215,000 annually. Now, it's tough to quantify the risk of a software supply chain attack on an organization. So I've leaned into a few industry reports that provide some really nice guidance and some good baselines for our report here today. First of all, we've got a 2025 Global DevSecOps survey from GitLab and Harris Polls, and they said that on average, developers spend 11 hours on vulnerability remediation per month. And so that's 11 hours of developer time that is not being put toward those strategic initiatives, just triaging vulnerabilities. Next one we have here comes from Anchor. It's a 2024 software supply chain security report. Said that a significant amount of a security engineer's time is spent toward triaging those CVE alerts, with up to 44% of those being false positives. So we've included a rough conservative estimate of 20 hours of security engineer time per month on CVE triage from open source packages. When you look at the audit cycle, without pre-generated attestations or provenance for all the third-party packages that are being used, the time that an audit cycle can take will spiral out of control pretty quickly. I put a conservative estimate of 40 hours per audit cycle in here that it would take to generate the provenance and the attestations ad hoc for all the open source that an organization of Acme size is using. And when you look at the SLAs that most organizations have, the ones that I've spoken with typically are converging somewhere between 7 days and 30 days for remediation of a critical CVE once a fix has been determined. So for our estimates here, I put a rough midline of 21 days for that remediation of a critical CVE. Last input that we have here comes from a combination of GitHub and JetBrains. 2 surveys that came out in 2024 ultimately showed 55% of developers were leveraging AI coding tools already at that time, maybe a little bit higher at this point in time as well too. Those AI coding tools were pulling in 10 new dependencies per month on average, and a pretty shocking 8 to 21% hallucination rate for packages that just didn't even exist. So that's a new risk surface that AI is introducing into organizations as well too. Now, when you step back and you look at just the overall organizational risk in general, there's a couple sources that I've leaned on to get some baseline statistics for this as well too. First one is going to be from Hiscox's 2025 Cyber Readiness Report. Said that 59% of organizations surveyed in their report experienced a cyber attack. Of course, not all of those came from software supply chain security, so we've dialed that down to 35% for the estimate here. And then when you look at more specifically which ones were attributed to software supply chain attacks and third-party responsibilities, leaned on a couple other sources here as well too. IBM's 2025 Cost of a Data Breach report attributed 15% of the data breaches in their study to software supply chain attacks, and Verizon's 2025 Data Breach Investigation report said that 30% of the breaches investigated in their report came from third party. That includes software supply chain, but it also includes commercial applications as well too. So put an estimate here of roughly 22%. We can scale that up or scale that down as needed. And then we're going to put roughly $250,000 in here for the annual cyber insurance premium. Now, we've been looking at about 5 minutes roughly to fill out this survey or fill out this calculator. And during that time, Acme Financial has burned $211 and counting. Counts up every second here, basically, on things like developer toil, on things like loss expectancy and risk exposure costs, things that don't add up on the balance sheet, but are going to be pains in the eyes of the C-levels and the board for Acme Financial. Specifically, when you think about the CFO view, things like hidden labor cost is going to be something that should be top of mind. Annual loss expectancy should be critical and on top of mind there when evaluating software supply chain security. And revenue at risk from a breach is going to be critical as well, too. When you think about the CISO's perspective, annual loss expectancy again is critical. The probability of a supply chain breach is critical as well. And the waste due to triaging false positives coming from the report from Anchor that we looked at earlier as well is going to be something that should be top of mind there. CIOs are going to be focused on the amount of developer time that's not being put toward those strategic initiatives. So that's something that's critical there as well. Ultimately, the dollar value of wasted engineering would be top of mind for the CIO. The CTO is going to look down on that as well, too, on the per developer triage burden, the developer velocity tax that's being lost to ultimately wasted engineering productivity, and the AI dependency risk cost that is being added to the organization every time an AI package either pulls in an unvetted dependency or hallucinates a package name that gives threat actors the chance to create that package, inject some malicious code, and ultimately lean on AI's hallucinations to bring in slop-squatted packages into your organization. And when you look at the overall view for the organization from a CEO's perspective, right, they're charged with driving the strategic vision for the organization, making sure that things like revenue continues to increase, shareholder value continues to increase, organizational risk decreases, brand trust goes up, efficiency goes up. One of the things that should be factored in for the CEO's perspective is the idea of strategic risk. And if a data breach occurs, what is the impact on the organization's revenue, both short-term and long-term? So that's something that's factored in here as far as strategic risk. And then when you look at the probability of a data breach, that should be in the eyes of the CEO as well, too. So I hope this calculator started to shed some light on just some of those hidden costs that don't show up on balance sheets, but ultimately do show up in the performance of your organization, both internally and externally, and how you stack up against your competitors. As you can see, the cost continues to rise for Acme Financial. If you want to evaluate the cost for your organization as well, let me know. Glad to run the report for you too.